All right. So this is a Colossus. Been waiting a lot of years, to be, to be able to say that. This isn't my lamp, just to get that out of the way to begin with. Somebody has hired me essentially to go through this lamp. It had a bunch of problems, but I'll get into that in a little bit. But start with just talking about what these are. When Lava Light left Chicago and the United States in 2003, I believe, um, the production of lava lamps under the lava lamp name moved to China. Um, and they started producing things, and they still do. They do it under shilling now. During the transition, they made this monster. And Lava Light in Chicago did make a lamp that was comparable to this and pretty much not identical, but if you looked at one, and there was one right next to it, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They called them the Humongo lamps. The dimensions were pretty much the same as this, but it was a more traditional vintage American fluid and wax setup. So they only made 30 of the Humongo lamps. They're pretty much the absolute holy grail of lava lamp collecting. Um, I've seen them, so I can kind of tell. I've seen pictures. I've never seen them in person, so I could tell the difference if somebody showed me one. The cap and the top's a little different. The globe was actually a German hand spun globe, and then they were put together in the United States from there. And the cap underneath was different um, in comparison to the Colossus, which was a few years down the line. So apparently, rumor has it, some of the early, and I can pretty much confirm this, all but confirm this because of my interactions with somebody who had one. A couple of the very early Colossus lamps that were Chinese production, like this one here, had some leftover Humongo globes in the very early examples of the Colossus. So they had some, when they moved their production to China, they had some leftover of the hands. They had a couple of the hand spun German globes left over that they used in the early days of production. So a couple of the people that got early production Colossuses apparently had original Humongo hand spun globes. I'm doing this off the information that I have and the information I've gathered research over the years. Unfortunately, I don't really know anybody directly I can talk to that has a Humongo. If you have one, reach out to me. I'd love to ask you a million nerdy questions. But still, what I've gathered from the people that have been in the community and everything longer than I have, that's the situation. A couple of the early Colossuses went out with Humongo globes. I'm not going to shout out names to people I know that had that situation just because I'm not going to do that. But somebody I talked to that I know currently has a Colossus, had one previously, I believe it broke, that had a Humongo globe. But anyways, about this lamp. So I got a lot of positive feedback and everything from people following my video for Grande restoration, which I have this over here just as a reference point. Just so you can kind of see the size comparison between the two. These are very large lamps, and when you put it next to this, that makes it look like a regular old tiny lava lamp. Um, Somebody reached out to me that had seen one of my videos on Grande restoration and said, "Hey, can you do a Colossus?" I said, "Yeah, I definitely could. I'd definitely love to." I said, "You're gonna have to bear with me because I want to try to make some videos with it, and also taking on a project of this size, I want to have it for a couple of months after I'm done with it and truly test it, run everything." And honestly, part of it's just me being, hey, I want to have it in my possession for a little bit if I'm going to go through with this process. But again, it's if I'm going to do this job, this person put this much money into it, charge them a fair amount, and I want to be able to run it as many times as I possibly can before it goes back to them to make sure that there's no issues in the long run with color bleed or anything could come up. And I just want to make sure it's going to work. Plus, these originally ran on a 200 watt incandescent heat lamp. And I know that you can't get that bulb anymore. They're impossible. Right? They don't make them. They haven't produced them in a long time. So pretty much everybody who has one has transferred over to a 250 watt. Got one over here. A 250 watt heat bulb. They look like this. That's part of the restoration I'm going to be doing is changing things up to set it to run properly on that bulb instead of the original 200 watt that they were designed to utilize. Anyways, more about this lamp. The guy who owns this lamp reached out to me, and I appreciate it. I thank him for trusting my work, um, and said, "Hey, I have this lamp. I've seen your videos. I'm not comfortable taking on a project of this size, just utilizing um, the information you've given me. And I mean, the information's out there, but like I said, taking on a project like this is a little daunting if you haven't done a lot of lamps before, and I've done hundreds at this point. But I mean, and the other thing, this lamp is not for sale. I know I'm going to get a million questions about that. I would have bought it if it was. Um, I mean, anybody who collects lava lamps, I mean, I can't say for everybody, but me specifically, I have checked every day on every sales site, auction site, everything you could possibly imagine. I look every day and have for the last 7 or 8 years for one of these lamps. And it's not like they don't come up for sale occasionally. They do. Um, but it's a very rare occurrence. I know one, the last one I saw sell on the open market went up on eBay in California for pickup only. I've been actually talking to the woman who bought it a little bit because she needs some work. Um, and part of me taking some videos here is trying to help the people who have them that want to work on them a little bit. But the last one that popped up was eBay in California. It was just a brushed aluminum base like this one, like this grande, but in this size. And I think it's sold. It was pickup only, so there's no delivery option. And I think it's sold in about an hour for $2,000. So occasionally they do pop up, but usually you're paying. I mean, if you ever find one of these and the person has any idea what it is, expect to pay somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000. The last one with this paint scheme that I know that came up was on Marketplace in Illinois, I believe. Um, it had the table attachment, and so does this one. But the person who shipped this to me, I obviously said don't bother shipping the table because we're already dealing with sending this, and I don't want one more breakable piece. I don't need to operate this lamp and to test this lamp. But usually they have, a lot of them had an option of a glass table that sat between the globe and the base here, and they looked pretty cool. You can look them up online, and you type in Colossus with table, it'll pull up a Google picture of. I know James Pictures comes up all the time. He's a good guy, but he has one with that, and this does have it. But I obviously told him not to ship it to me because why would he send another piece of glass when we're already shipping this back and forth? This lamp, from what I gather, actually the last one. Just back to that before I forget it. The last one that sold with the table, this cap painted this way and this base painted this way, sold on Marketplace in Illinois for $3,800. It was around. It was during COVID, so it probably went. It might have gone a little bit more than I think. People were going crazy for weird things that they could enjoy at home during COVID and paying a little bit more. I think realistically, if you were to find this lamp with the table in good operating condition, and that one was that sold, I would expect the price to be somewhere around 3,400 bucks, reasonably, because they are incredibly rare. Like I said, the Humongo American ones, they only made 30, and these Chinese production Colossuses, they made right. They say 3,000, but I'm sure the number isn't 3,000 on the dot. I'm sure it was right around 3,000. But this is only a theory for me, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of these, and I think the overwhelming majority of the humongos, because the humongos just don't exist. I know indirectly through somebody else, one guy who has one that is still functioning in an operation. Um, I think a lot of the humongos, because the prices on the humongo, the American with the hand spun globes, were wild for the time. I believe that was the early '90s of the production of those were done, and I think they were somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000 new. So I think what happened with a lot of those, and again, this is just speculation on my part, I think a lot of those were bought for corporate events or I don't know, musical events or something like that, where there was expendable funds to add some sort of ambiance to an event. And anybody knows things that get purchased for a purpose like that either get discarded, given to somebody's kid, and they don't know what they have. And I'm pretty sure, I would think it's safe to say that probably half the humongos that they produce out of the 30 are probably gone, whether broken, discarded. I'm sure there's a couple sitting in attics somewhere in storage containers, but I've never seen one come up in the open market. And if it did, it would probably sell for around $10,000. I mean, for how rarely these come up, and there's literally 100 times more of these than there are of the humongos. Like I said, they don't usually have this really cool base. This is super rare. I don't know how many of these they made. I've only seen 2 others, even in pictures, that have this cap and base. But again, I'm just trying to give you as much information as I can that I know about these things, because it's kind of hard to dig up. You got to pick a little bit of information from one source and a little bit from another. Just trying to give you as much as I can on it. But even the Colossuses, I'm sure the overwhelming majority of these are probably, not the overwhelming majority, but a good chunk of the percentage of what they produce are probably gone. They weren't cheap either when you produced them. I think when they first released them in 2006, I believe. And again, don't hold me directly to years. I'm not reading anything. I'm going off my memories of what I've read. I think they were produced around 2006 to 2008. I know when they first came out, I think they were $1,500 to buy, and I think towards the end they were trying to get everybody that really wanted one of these massive lava lamps. I think they probably bought them initially when they first said, "Hey, we're going to do a Colossus again," and anybody who ever wanted we're going to do this lamp called the Colossus, and anybody that ever wanted a Humongo was like, "Oh, I'm getting one. I don't care what the price is." And I think everybody that really wanted one probably bought one initially for around $1,500. And then I heard towards the end of production, the numbers weren't selling that they were immediately. So I think the last few they kind of liquidated, and I think you could get one. I heard towards the end they were 800, and then I heard a couple of people at the end got one for like somewhere between $400 and $500. And for realistically what this is, and it's very hard to tell in a picture and even in the video how large this is, even with a size comparison next to this lamp is enormous. When I knew like I said, I've read all of this stuff for years and years and drooled over the pictures of these lamps. And when I opened the packages with this in it, I wasn't prepared for. I mean, the first thing I saw was this cap, and I went, "Oh my God!" I never realized how big these are. I had no idea. And even like I said, and I put it on a counter next to me. And I'm a very big guy. I'm 6'3". I'm like 240 pounds. So just run that comparison with me standing next to it. This thing is absolutely enormous. And I'll show you a couple things in a couple minutes that really try to give you an idea how big this is. But really, there's no way to really accurately do it until you see one in person. And I had never seen one in person until I received this lamp. Anyways, back to it. This guy said that during shipping, not during shipping, sorry, he was moving a couple years ago, and I actually have the parts right here. A couple years ago, they were moving, and the lamp had at some point pulled this seal, which went under the cap. These are capped very similar to the Grande lamps, if you've seen them before. Caps almost identical, just way larger. And they had a rubber cap, just like the rubber seal, just like the Grandes, underneath the metal cap. And a handful of years ago, before they were going to move, when this thing cooled at some point, it created a vacuum like any lamp and pulled this seal down into it. And the first pictures he sent me were this sitting down in the wax. And this cover was still crimped on there somewhat, but when he moved, I guess moving, it made it easier for them. They drained the fluid that was in there to move. And his son was going to take on the restoration at some point and got cold feet or just never carried it out and sat like that for a handful of years. And so he sent me this, no fluid, but the original wax. And he said he thought the wax was cooked. And when I saw it, I kind of agree. This lamp's getting a full resto. These lamps originally had, and there's some debate over this, but I'm pretty certain, Some of the early large-scale lamps, when the Chinese production went over there, did use a more vintage-ish style fluid, not nearly that far direction as the original lava light lamps, but some of the grandes I've actually received to restore from people I've gotten into them and through a process of elimination realized that they did have a more vintage fluid than the typical fluid that we use in modern grandes, and I've shown in my other videos. That's just distilled water and a surfactant. I know I pronounced that word wrong. You can all say that. I've just said it that way for so long. I'm not going to change at this point. And I'm a lava lamp nerd, so who cares? So a couple of the old grandes I've done, when I got into them, I realized that they had a glycerin or a so it was the old. Just for a little bit of information, the vintage lamps function off a little bit different wax, and they had their fluid, instead of just being distilled water and a surfactant, they were distilled water, a surfactant, and propylene glycol or glycerin to change the density of the fluid to allow the wax to move in a different way. Whatever. So some of the early Chinese lamps, the large scale lamps, I don't think the small scale lamps did, but I've never ran into a small scale lamp that seemed to have a more vintage style fluid. But the large scale lamps did. uh, through like 2000, I think 2004 through 2006 ish. Some of the grandes had that. And from everything I can find out, this did too. Not that that's going to matter, because some people are going to go, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. But this is getting a modern setup. Modern wax and modern fluid in large scale lamps flows fantastic. The only difference you're going to see, I mean, I guess I could tell in a large scale lamp, but I mean, I'm the biggest nerd on the planet when it comes to this stuff. The difference between the flow of a large scale lamp with modern fluid and a large scale lamp with vintage fluid and vintage wax. The one difference you can kind of see is when you get those cool eruptions when your lamp heats up. With the vintage style, those eruptions are kind of a little more intricate. They kind of build crazier structures when they do begin to flow. But as far as the flow goes, you get a great flow with modern fluid on large scale applications. This is over here. This monstrosity I made is actually vintage, modern setup, and the flow is spectacular. I'd have it running right now, but I actually have this is actually traditional glass. So I got a timer being wired by a buddy that's programmed by a buddy that's incrementally warms it and then incrementally cools it so it doesn't stress the glass as much as it can. And everybody says never make a lava lamp out of, especially a large scale one, out of typical glass, because most lava lamps are made out of borosilicate or Pyrex, realistically. Um, this is just modern glass, and this is regular glass, and everybody told me not to do it. It was a recipe, waiting for a disaster to happen, and this thing's been run 100 times, and so far so good. But at the same time, wouldn't be surprised if one day I came down here and there's lava lamp all over the floor while I'm running it. So I'm not saying that'll never happen with this lamp. I hope it never does. The thing's kind of cool, but there's a video of it running if you look down on my page. But anyways, back to this. So this is getting I would have this is getting a modern restoration. I have to do some work with how the bulb mounts and some other things. Plus, this is the new wax in here. I know people are going to be irritated with me because I wanted to document everything while I was working on this, but when I work on this, I'm having a panic attack the entire time, because if I were to break this, it's irreplaceable. It's not like you would just buy another one. Even if I were to give the guy the money, it's not like he can go buy one. There isn't one available right now. So every time I'm doing it, I'm literally just trying to focus everything I can on the lamp. And I mean, I will tell you how to do everything with these lamps along the way. If you have one and you're trying to restore it, I will obviously take on more restorations of these. I haven't really been taking on custom grandes lately and custom old lamp restorations and things like that, just because I don't have the time. I work almost 60 hours a week. I'm a heavy equipment guy. This is not my day job. It pays relatively well when I make custom lamps, and it's a nice side hustle and everything. But I just do it because I love lava lamps and I love tinkering with them and making weird new colors and finding new variations I can do to make lamps do different things. But anyways, it's not my day job, so I don't have enough time to take on lamps from everybody. If you want to buy one of my custom grandes, and don't take this as an example, because that's in the middle of a bunch. I'm still working on that thing. It's in the middle of a bunch of different things, and I still haven't got it to where I want it to. It kind of looks funny as it is. But if you ever want to buy one of my lamps, I do have an eBay page. I can link it somewhere in the notes underneath the video. But either way, I'm not trying to sell you anything. They sell just fine on their own. So anyways, back to this. So the guy shipped me this, and it was in the middle of an epic heat wave in New England. And the wax that was in here had liquefied during shipping because inside of the packages that he packaged it well. Still had a heart attack waiting for it. Probably got to 140 degrees, and whatever wax was in there liquefied, and this thing got jostled and shook around, and the cap wasn't sealed. So when I opened the package, and I wanted to do a video when I opened the package, I wanted to do a video where I initially cleaned the old wax and the globe out. But the problem was when I opened the package, there was wax everywhere. Liquid wax. I looked like a serial killer. I was covered my hands up to my shoulders and my face in red wax, trying to get this thing out, make sure everything was okay, make sure nothing was broken. And there was wax on the packing peanuts, the bubble wrap, everywhere. And I wasn't trying to do a video while I was just, one, trying to make sure this thing was in one piece, and two, trying to clean up the most epic mess you could possibly imagine. I also would have loved to done a video about opening the top of this. It was already open when I got it, and I was just trying to deal with the mess. At the same time, opening them, and I'll talk about it right now, is not rocket science. Resealing them is a little bit more complicated, but I will go through that in a video when I get to it. But if you're trying to open yours, and I do not suggest opening yours if you aren't going to commit to doing this in its entirety. If you don't know what you're doing, please do your research first, because I don't want any more of these lamps to be lost to history. There's only so many of them. I want them to be enjoyed. If you don't know what you're doing, you can either, like I said, I'll show you the best I can how to go about doing this. You could send it to me and I will charge you to do it, or you could just message me back and forth and I will try everything I can to help you through it. Whether you decide to send it to me and pay me to do it, which is fine, I'm happy to do that, especially in these because they're such a rare example and I just want them to continue to function. It's going to be an expensive process because of shipping and everything. But either way, if you decide to do that, that's fine. If you want to tackle it yourself, I will tell you everything I know. Never charge you for a thing to try to help you through it. Just message me in the comments. I can try to get you personal information to reach out to me. That's an option too. I never gatekeep with this stuff. I will give you everything I know and tell you everything I know and tell you everywhere where I get materials and products and cleaning devices, and I never hide that stuff from people that want to know. So I have enough custom work lined up for years, even though I don't take it anymore. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but again, the option is there. If you have one, you want me to do it, I will do it. If you want to do it yourself and you're not comfortable with it, you can reach out to me. I'll tell you everything. If you're not still comfortable at the end of that, I'd gladly will still work out a deal with you to do it myself. But at the same time, I will try and help you the best I can if you have one of these and you want to restore it yourself for nothing. I want all of these that still exist to be functioning and in someone's basement. When people come over, they go, oh my God, that's what these lamps were for. And I want them to still exist. I want them to still be used. I will try and help you the best I can. This is the little cap in the gasket that came off just to give you a better idea. And one of the best ways I can think of right now to show you just how large these are Grande cap, which are huge in the grand scheme of things with lava lamps. Colossus cap. That's the difference you're looking at. So, anyways, so this lamp had, and the paint and everything on this thing is in just great shape. This lamp's in great shape. I mean, there's some scuffing from just being bumped in whatever room it was in over years. There's a tiny paint chip here, but other than that, the lamp is in phenomenal condition. They have a dimmer switch built in back here. I'm not going to try to move the thing right now. It's just a dimmer knob on the back of the base that you can turn on. There's no bulb in this right now. But as far as the restoration has gone so far, when I got it, it was an absolute mess. I knew the wax was cooked. So I hooked up a garden hose directly to my hot water heater. I poured all of the wax I could into a separate container to keep for something. I don't know. I might use it to try to restore it at some point. Try to get it. Honestly, it's just going to sit probably in the rest of my massive amount of supplies that I'll never touch because I think it's smoked. Um, and then I cleaned out the globe the best I could initially, just with a garden hose outside with hot water because I was afraid to even touch the globe because it was sticky with wax and all the other chemicals that were in it originally were covered. I could barely pick the thing up without worrying that I was going to drop it. I wasn't taking any risks. I kept it outside on grass with blankets around it, and I dumped out everything that was in there. Then the wax was fluid because it was so hot during shipping. Dumped it into a container to keep and set aside for, like I said, probably nothing. But once I had that all out, I sat there and blasted out the inside with a garden hose with hot water on it just to get it clean and the outside of it so I could grab the glass and pick it up without worrying about it slipping. Again, would have shown you this, but it was such a whirlwind of me being excited I finally had one in my possession and me wanting to just get it inside and safe. And so, not that getting the initial wax out would be that much of an issue to begin with. If you're going to do it, and you don't have an option like I just said, you don't have the option to hook up a hose to hot water. My best bit of suggestion would probably be to. I would imagine you're going to have the base with it. If you don't, I mean, you'd have to machine something wild. But my best bet would be to, once you get your fluid out, and like I said, this opening it is just like a grande on a large scale, and I'm going to swear, goddamn, be careful. Because, like I said, if you break your glass, you're done. You're not getting another one. They're impossible. I mean, the whole lamps are impossible to find. And even if you do find one, you're never going to find just the glass. I mean, I'm sure it's happened because somebody, either way, it doesn't matter. So when you open them, if you're doing it, like I said, unless and like I said, there's plenty of other people that know what they're doing other than me. I'm not going to act like I am some wealth of knowledge that nobody else has. If you're doing it, just make sure you're confident and you know what you're doing. If not, contact me or somebody else that you know or found online that really knows what they're doing before you get into this, because I don't want you to destroy one of these realistically precious lamps. But the same way I did with the Grande, you can watch in the previous videos that I have about opening this. Just take a tool, and sometimes I just jam through these because I'm throwing them away in the Grandes and then peel them off. I didn't want to do this because I wanted to keep the original cap to give back to the owner of the lamp with it, although it's going to have a remanufactured cap on the top. But just take a tool. I said, I emphasize this all the time, anytime you're going to be using a metal tool anywhere near glass, be incredibly careful. But take a flathead screwdriver, and find the edge and gently peel it up, slowly and gently. Don't try to rush it. Eventually, it's going to let go once you work your way around the whole lamp. And theoretically, you're probably still going to have this sealed underneath it. And you can keep these. I'd say keep them just because parts for this are so. Just keep the original cap. Why wouldn't you? We'll talk about rubber sealing later with these. But once you get in it, you get your wax out. You're going to treat this like if you're doing a modern restoration, like I am. You're going to treat this like prepping the globe, just like on a grande. So look back at my previous video of how to do grandes. You're going to prep it the same way. You're going to need a long bottle brush. And fortunately, I was so concerned about how I was going to do this. I'm like, I'm going to need to use a mop. I didn't. I have a bottle brush I use for all my grande restorations that's used to clean like the 5-gallon water bubblers in office buildings and stuff like that. I can fit my hand directly into this lamp. So I was able to use the same brush that I use on grande lamps. I just reached inside and sort of brushed it clean that way. And I prepped it the same way. You just clean it the best you can first with hot water and good quality dish soap. Rinse it the best you can afterwards. Get all the dish soap out. It doesn't matter because you're still going to be adding degreaser. Once you get the majority of the dish soap out, put a degreaser in, dilute it with water, do the same thing. Scrub the hell out of the inside of it. Be careful. Like I said, don't break the damn thing. And then once that's cleaned out, you want to rinse. You got to get all of any cleaning fluid out of there. So you rinse the hell out of the thing, get every remnant of the cleaning solutions that you used out of it, and then it's ready to be prepped with surfactant and distilled water to the inside. This one is ready to go. I added the wax. I just used a long funnel and I put a little And the funnel down here. I used a funnel like this. This isn't the one I used for it. Long funnel that'll reach right to the bottom of the globe and put the wax in. I would put fluid in already, and I was actually going to do it last night, and then I ran into some problems that I need to adjust with the light bulb. I'll probably get into that, probably ready for fluid this week, and I'll have it up and running by next weekend. As long as, knock on wood, as long as I don't run into any unexpected obstacles, which can happen. I mean, like you said, information on how to work on these or store these and work on what the interior is and everything is not readily available on the internet. I've never seen videos or even pictures really of somebody working on it. If you have one of these that you just want to filter the fluid, if everything else still functions fine in the lamp, but the fluid is cloudy, none of your wax is sticking to your glass, the lamp functions exactly how it is, but the fluid has gone cloudy, I'd probably suggest, and I don't usually suggest this with most lamps, I usually suggest just create new master fluid, but with something like that, I would suggest just filtering. The problem is doing it with the traditional way I've always done it with small lamps, just squeezing 2-liter bottles and run through a filter and into something else would take you a decade. If you were going to do it on this, and your forearms would be about that big by the time you're done. I would look into an automated filter. They make them. There's gravity-fed ones where you can hang bags and it runs through automatically. And there's ones that run off a little electric motor. And I think you can get examples like that for 50, 60 bucks on Amazon. If you're going to be doing an entire lamp, filtering it like that, you're not going to do it by squeezing the fluid into bottles. It would take forever. I mean, is it possible? Sure, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So look into an automated filter if that's what you're going to do. And like I said, if it's just cloudy fluid in these, it's probably the only lamp on the planet other than the Humongo, if you have one, that I would suggest just filtering, because I always advocate for just making new fluid, especially in modern lamps. But something like this, if you can keep it as original as possible, all the better. So if you have one of these that's just cloudy, again, if you don't know what you're doing, please just reach out to me. I'll help you through it the best I can. I would just filter it instead of making master fluid, just on preserving what's there originally, if you can do it the best you can. So anyways, you have any questions more about how these were made, when they were made, so on, it's any questions you have about the things, I suppose technically I'm producing videos now, so like and subscribe. I really don't care if you do. I'll keep trying to make more videos about this along the way. I'll obviously show you it running next to probably a Grande that I have kicking around. Maybe I'll get all 3 of these running one day together just to make the coolest lava lamp video ever. Any questions, throw it in the comments. If you want, if you happen to have one of these, you want me to do it, reach out in the comments and I'll get you my information and I'll take it on. I'm sure you'll be more comfortable with me doing yours once you see this one completed anyways. But yeah. Oh, we'll throw this in here too. Everybody has been asking me to do videos on wax coloring. There's a very good reason why I haven't. Everybody knows that is watching any other videos that I use my surfactant I get from Claude over at Lava Lab. I don't really use any of his other products, not for any particular reason, other than the fact that they generally only work with his products, and I don't like using things for the most part that I can't experiment with and that aren't friendly with other coloring methods and things like that. Usually when I use the other methods, I use to color typical, like if I open a Grande and color the wax that's in there, I want to be able to add certain candle waxes, certain things I use that work well with it. And they do usually work well with original wax out of a modern shilling lava lamp. Claude stuff is specifically designed to work like his colors are specifically designed to work with his wax at his temperatures he's developed. And that's not a bad thing. If you have a lamp that you want to go, you're not really sure about how to make things yourself, and you want to start over, just empty the thing and get a new color, a new fluid, everything else, Claude stuff works fine. But the way I play with stuff, it's not always friendly with the weird things I do compared to the regular wax. This actually has Claude's wax and Claude's color in it. I don't usually do the whole shebang with him, but the person who sent me this had the wax for it already, and part of our deal was I was going to use the wax from Claude. I have made my own wax. I don't necessarily suggest that. It's a pain. Um, I usually just try to typically use the wax that's in the lamps I do to begin with and then modify them. And as far as why I haven't made really any videos about coloring waxes, because I have like 300 different coloring kits from candle makers is usually what how I get the kits that I use. And there's no kit that has, say, 30 colors in it from a candle maker that every one of them works. Every kit I've ever had, I'll try a color out of it, it'll work great, and the next one I use, here's a perfect example right here. Um, Say I'll use a red out of that kit, and I make the lamp, it'll run and function fantastic. And then the next weekend, I'll go to make another lamp and say I want to do purple like this one. I get it all set up, I'll use a purple out of that kit and it goes to all hell. The color will bleed. It'll make separate pieces of things. It's a nightmare. I have done so many lamps that I can usually reverse that and figure out a way to make it work. I can't, whether it be adding certain chemicals to adjust density levels within the lamp. It's tough to make a video that, because I can't just say, hey, use this kit. All these colors are great, because none of them are. It's a trial and error thing. And the problem is when you make the errors, you need to know how to reverse them. And I can't really see any time in the future where I can make enough videos that show how to reverse or correct or modify every situation a certain color could affect the operation of the lamp. This has Claude's colors, this has Claude's wax, because Claude's colors works with Claude's wax. That's, like I said, why I don't usually use his wax and his colors, is just because it doesn't like outside chemicals and outside color treatments. It likes his stuff. Like I said, it's nothing against his company. He has a good company. His stuff works great with his stuff. So if you're just doing a lamp from scratch, his stuff's fine. But like I said, with how many chemicals and metallics and I use some of the old school chemicals apparently that I'm not going to talk too much about because a lot of people scoff at, oh, those are dangerous. They don't usually play well with his stuff. But again, if you're starting a lamp, just using a surfactant, a distilled water, and starting from nothing with his colors and his wax, and you follow his instructions, they work great. I just don't use most of his stuff because, like I said, I throw too many weird things in trying to accomplish different weird things, especially with the millions of grandes I make. That's why I don't do it. But then again, like I said, I try to typically stay with the wax that comes in the lamps, and I tried to modify them the best I can. If there was an easy solution that had a 20 color kit that you could buy on Amazon for 15 bucks that everything worked great, I would tell you all about it. But that's unfortunately not how it is. The one thing I will get into, and I know people have been asking me for a while and I haven't got to it, is fluid coloring. And the reason I haven't got to it is because I don't really do it. I can do it. I've done it plenty of times. I did it on one of the last restorations I made because that's what the person wanted. But I mentioned before, always advocate for a nice, vibrant colored wax and as clear as a fluid as we can possibly make, because I think it makes the lamp pop. You don't need any other distractions, especially with something like this, the fact that it's a huge lava lamp. You don't need to add more. It's going to be incredible with clear fluid and colored wax. But at some point, for the people that do, and like I said, it's just a preference for me. I like clear fluid. I can color fluid. I know how. It's not complicated. I'll do a video at some point on how to do that. That's what you want to know. But anyways, if you want to stay up with this, just subscribe to my YouTube channel. It'll notify you every time I do it. I will try to get another one out this week with the next step that we do on this, and I will keep you posted throughout the way.